Me and my friends made 3 different games for the 15th Pirate Software Game Jam. The theme for this one was shadows and alchemy, and from that, me and my friends made some pretty different games. Shadow puppets. For someone who's been trying to do game dev for years upon years, this probably should have turned out better. But hey, this is what happens when you put your projects off and you don't invest enough time into them. I was confident that with my programming knowledge and my art experience, I could pump out something really quick. I was constantly putting off the game jam because the idea I had was too large scale for a game jam. I probably could have at least made 1 level like my friend Jeff did if I had taken the plunge and committed to the idea early on, but I was too much of a pussy and a coward, as some would say. I made my game using Pygame, which is a graphics library for creating games in Python. From my experience, using a graphics library is way harder than just using a game engine, just because there's no visual editor. After trying to use Pygame, making a bunch of spaghetti code that's genuinely some of the worst stuff I've ever coded in my life, and adding some nice sound effects to my game, adding some effects animations, my game was finally done. Well, only kinda, because when I exported my game to HTML, some of the rendering stuff kind of messed up. Like, the game doesn't render at the resolution it should, and now it just kind of looks bit crushed. You'll see this is like a common problem among our games where exporting to HTML just fucks shit up. My idea was to make a game where you create shadow puppets that match alchemy symbols that pop up on the screen. It was supposed to be a rhythm heaven type game. I wanted to add way more, but I just used the most simple symbols, which made the game really easy to make, but it also made the game really easy on its own. I tried to make the controls as weird and awkward as I could, because that's supposed to be part of the fun. You're supposed to struggle making the symbols, but because all of the symbols are pretty similar, you just press these 2 buttons at the start of the game, and then you only press these ones to play the game, which makes it really fucking easy. For how shit it is, I actually find the game pretty fun. I'd say the sound effects add a lot to it and make it way more enjoyable, I'd say. And right now the world record for my game is like 100 something. The record holder is my friend Jonny. Speaking of Mr. Jonny, here's his game. Jonny was actually the reason we started this game jam. He had watched a video by Pirate Software that inspired him to create his own game design document. I read through it and it really inspired me, and I thought doing this game jam would keep that creative momentum going. At the beginning of the game jam, he had this really cool game idea where you're an alchemist or this wizard or this guy that would fight shadows in a play. Basically, you'd fight the people who move inanimate objects around in a play. He made a bunch of cool concept art but decided to scrap the idea due to the scope of it. Then he started working on Shadow Knight, a dungeon crawler type game. Sadly, he didn't get too far with the idea since he decided to switch his idea and even his game engine so late into the game jam. However, that switch doesn't really stop the game from still being really cool. I really like how it looks. I like that the main character is 2D and everything else is low poly 3D. I really like this ambient track he made. I even love how fucked up the lighting is. It's not supposed to be like this obviously, but because of HTML exporting issues, the light just renders like that. I think it does add to the atmosphere though, kind of makes it sort of like abstract and whatever. Exporting HTML also messed up the game's aspect ratio, and you have to open up the game in full screen before the game loads, or the cursor just doesn't lock into place properly. There's probably some like easy way to fix that, but whatever. Game's still cool, game's still sick. Finally, last game, Mercury. This was Jeff's game. It's like the most fullest, the most complete, and the most polished out of all 3 of the games. Jeff, out of all of us, has the most experience with game dev and has put the most work into getting good at it. He made this other project called Tartarus, which is an interesting game about using a camera to flash shit and get coins and give them to this old man. Probably butchered the plot, but whatever. It's fun. You should play it. It's cool. It's interesting. Back to Mercury though, this game is just really great, unironically. Using the shadows part of the theme, the level is coated in darkness that can only be lit using the potions and some other objects that are placed around the map. The potions in this game are like the most fun part of it. There are 4 base ones: movement, stunning, damage, and healing, but then you get to start mixing them together and you get all these different effects. All the particle effects are really good, sound effects are great. The main character mostly feels good to control, besides like a few bugs and movement quirks. Remove them. Jeffrey, like any good game with beast movement. Like any good game with beast movement, the game just feels good when you're in a flow state, you know, throwing potions, mixing them together, using the dash to go everywhere, it's great. Also, I like the fact that you can just use this red and white potion mix to skip the entire game. Shit's just great. I love that type of shit in games. After all the days, the hours we spent worrying, stressing, and working on this game, on the last day, we set up our itch.io pages, finished our game design documents, and turned them in. There were a bunch of judges for this game jam, and if you created a game design document and turned in the game on time, you would get a review of your game to tell you how well you did, what you can improve. Just encouragement for any game developer, really, which is really cool. So here are the reviews. Mercury. So Mercury got some pretty good rankings. I disagree with it. I think it was pretty playable, but there's a lot of good feedback here in my opinion. I hope in the future Jeff continues to work on it because I really like how the game feels in general. Like sometimes I just be speedrunning it when I'm bored. It's like one of those little flash games. You should play it. I think you should play it. It's a quick game. It's a fun ride. Shadow Knight. As expected, the highest ranked thing for this one was the art, which I agree is fire. The judge also gave some nice feedback. I agree with this. I also really hope that it works on this later on. You should work on this more. You should work on it. And finally, my cool game, Shadow Puppets. Oh, I didn't submit it. After all that time trying to crunch this thing out, I didn't even get a review. Honestly, pretty deserved. While I had fun making my game, I think the game is sort of fun, a little replayable. I felt like no passion while I was working on it. Like I felt like I was just doing it to do it because I had to, and because one of my goals this summer was to make a game. Obviously some parts of game dev are gonna feel like that. You just have to do it, you have to push through. But if the main idea isn't something that excites me, what's the point of doing it? There was so much more passion in the other games I've made, and honestly if you want to play a game I've made for some reason, go play this game I made sophomore year of high school. Zipliner. At the time, I was embarrassed by it, but it's honestly still probably the best game I've ever made. It's a fun, simple idea. I put a lot of heart into. I put at least some thought into the level design. Not perfect because I didn't know how to instance things, which made some of my puzzles not work. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but obviously just following passion isn't going to get you anywhere. But also working on an artistic project that you don't care about isn't gonna get you anywhere either. From now on, I'm not gonna try to work on something, especially like any artistic project that I don't care about. That's why this video took too long, because I was just trying to make something good out of the last footage I had, and it just wasn't doing anything for me, you know? I wish I had stayed with my other game idea, but at the very least I can still say that I made a game for the summer, which was still one of my goals. And I'm at least happy with that.